The transmission arrived at 2:37 hours, Greenwich Mean Time. Captain Elena Rodriguez studied the holographic display, her dark eyes reflecting the intricate alien script scrolling across the screen. The message from the Kraken Syndicate was technically diplomatic, wrapped in layers of seemingly benevolent language. But Elena had spent 2 decades analyzing first contact scenarios, and something felt fundamentally wrong. She zoomed in on a particular set of symbols, her cybernetic interface translating the complex language in real time. Each word was a carefully constructed puzzle, designed to appear cooperative while concealing deeper intentions. The alien diplomats had clearly spent centuries perfecting this approach, a soft invasion disguised as interstellar courtesy. Dr. Chen, she called into the communication array, run a full spectral analysis on this transmission. Dr. Marcus Chen, head of xenolinguistic analysis at the United Earth Strategic Research Center, appeared moments later. His holographic projection materialized with quantum precision, bringing with it the faint smell of coffee and electromagnetic ozone. "I'm already 2 steps ahead of you, Elena." His fingers danced across multiple translucent screens, pulling apart the alien message like a complex mechanical watch. The linguistic structures suggest multiple layers of meaning. They're not just communicating, they're probing. Every sentence is a potential vector for information extraction. Elena nodded. The Kraken Syndicate wasn't making first contact. They were conducting an elaborate reconnaissance mission. Across the globe, similar scenes were unfolding. In Beijing, a team of quantum physicists dissected the transmission's electromagnetic signature. In Nairobi, advanced AI systems cross-referenced the message against centuries of diplomatic archives. In Buenos Aires, military strategists began recalibrating global defense networks. The human response was not a panic. It was a precision instrument of collective intelligence. Within governmental secured facilities, emergency protocols activated with surgical efficiency. Research budgets were quietly redirected. Universities received classified grants with zero public announcement. Military training programs underwent overnight transformations, emphasizing adaptive thinking and unconventional strategy. In Silicon Valley, entire technology development pipelines were converted. Consumer electronics research became advanced defensive technology development. Neural interface engineers worked alongside quantum computing experts. Machine learning algorithms began modeling potential alien interaction scenarios with terrifying complexity. "We're not preparing for a war," Elena explained to the select committee of global representatives. "We're creating a comprehensive system of intelligent resistance." The committee understood. Each member represented a different cultural background, but they shared one critical understanding. Humanity would not be another footnote in some alien civilization's expansion records. Global communication networks began their silent transformation. Quantum encryption became standard. Decentralized communication protocols emerged that could survive potential technological disruption. Every citizen became a potential node in a planet-wide adaptive network. Dr. Chen's analysis confirmed their suspicions. The Kraken Syndicate's transmission contained subtle quantum markers, technological probes designed to extract fundamental information about human technological capabilities. What appeared to be a diplomatic message was actually an advanced scanning mechanism. "They're measuring us," Chen explained, like scientists examining a new biological specimen. Elena's response was calm, calculated. "Then we'll give them something worth measuring." The first phase of preparation had begun. Humanity was no longer just a collection of nations. It had become a single, breathing organism, adaptable, intelligent, and definitively uninterested in becoming another conquered civilization. The stars watched. Something extraordinary was emerging from the small blue planet. The laboratory looked like organized chaos. Dr. Akira Nakamura stood at the center of a whirlwind of activity, holographic displays swirling around him like electronic butterflies. Cables snaked across reinforced carbon fiber floors, connecting prototype systems that defied conventional understanding of physics and communication. His team represented the best of human potential. Physicists worked alongside materials engineers. Neuroscientists collaborated with quantum computing experts. Young researchers from every continent brought their most radical ideas, united by a single purpose: create technology that could change everything. Quantum entanglement is more than a communication method, Akira muttered, adjusting a delicate quantum resonance array. It's a fundamental reimagining of information transfer. The breakthrough had come from an unexpected combination of disciplines. A neural network designed to predict earthquake patterns had revealed unexpected quantum communication principles. What began as an earth science project had transformed into humanity's most advanced communication technology. In a secured facility beneath the Andes Mountains, another team worked on something equally revolutionary. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's Materials Science Division was creating adaptive nanocomposites that could fundamentally reshape themselves. These weren't just materials, they were living technologies that could think, adapt, and respond to environmental challenges. A single gram of the new nanocomposite could reconfigure its molecular structure in microseconds. It could become armor, a communication device, or a precision tool, all within a fraction of a second. Traditional manufacturing was dead. This was molecular engineering taken to its ultimate conclusion. We're not just creating technology, Dr. Rodriguez explained to her team. We're creating living systems that can respond to challenges we haven't even imagined yet. Across the globe, similar breakthroughs were happening simultaneously. In Tokyo, energy researchers developed quantum vacuum energy extraction systems that could pull unlimited power from what was previously considered empty space. In Nairobi, biointegration specialists created neural interfaces that seamlessly connected human consciousness with advanced computing systems. The military was transforming alongside scientific research. Traditional weapons became obsolete. Why create a missile when you could develop a system that could predict and neutralize threats before they emerge? Strategic defense was becoming predictive, adaptive, intelligent. Captain Marcus Chen led the first test of the Integrated Neural Defense Network. Sitting in a neural interface chair, his consciousness merged with a global defensive grid. He could feel the planet's technological nervous system, millions of sensors, communication nodes, and adaptive systems breathing as a single organism. Connection stable, a technician announced. Neural synchronization at 98.7%. Chen's mind expanded beyond physical limitations. He could simultaneously track potential threats, analyze communication patterns, and predict strategic movements across multiple potential scenarios. This wasn't just defense, it was a new form of collective intelligence. The Kraken Syndicate's initial transmission had triggered something profound. Humanity wasn't just preparing for potential conflict, it was evolving. Every research facility, every university, every technological center had become part of a global transformation. Traditional boundaries between disciplines disappeared. A climate scientist might develop a breakthrough in quantum computing. A neural interface expert could revolutionize material science. Collaboration became the most powerful technology of all. We're creating something they won't understand, Akira told Elena during a rare moment of shared reflection. Not just technology. A living, adaptive system of collective intelligence. The stars seemed to watch with newfound respect. Something was emerging from the small blue planet, something unprecedented, uncontainable, and utterly extraordinary. The war room looked nothing like a traditional military command center. Dr. Amara Okik walked between workstations where specialists from dozens of disciplines studied intricate holographic displays. Linguists sat next to neuroscientists. Anthropologists worked alongside quantum data analysts. Cultural experts mapped complex societal networks with an almost artistic precision. It's not about breaking them, Amara explained to her team. It's about understanding them so completely that conflict becomes unnecessary. The Kraken Syndicate's civilization was a complex machine of hierarchical structures and rigid communication protocols. Traditional military intelligence would have focused on weapons and technological capabilities. Amara's team took a radically different approach. They were dissecting an entire civilization like a complex living organism. Each team member brought a unique perspective. Dr. Carlos Rodriguez, a cultural anthropologist, had spent decades studying complex social systems. His neural interface could process cultural information at speeds that would have been impossible a decade ago. Linguistic patterns, communication nuances, social hierarchies, they became data points in a massive living model. See these communication patterns, Carlos said, manipulating a holographic representation of Kraken Syndicate diplomatic exchanges. They're not just transmitting information. They're maintaining a complex social hierarchy with every single interaction. The team discovered something profound. The Kraken Syndicate's entire civilization was built on a delicate balance of social credit, hierarchical positioning, and ritualized communication. Their strength was also their most significant weakness. A young researcher named Mai Zong developed an extraordinary algorithm. By introducing subtle communication variations that would be almost imperceptible to human observers, the system could create microscopic stress fractures in the Kraken Syndicate's social communication networks. "We're not attacking," Mai explained. "We're gently destabilizing their internal communication structures." Psychological warfare had evolved beyond propaganda or traditional manipulation. This was a precise, scientific approach to social engineering. Every communication became a carefully constructed narrative designed to introduce complexity into the alien civilization's collective consciousness. The team's first test came unexpectedly. A routine diplomatic communication channel became their experimental ground. They introduced linguistic patterns that subtly challenged the Kraken Syndicate's hierarchical assumptions. Tiny variations in communication protocol that would seem insignificant to an outside observer. The results were extraordinary. Within weeks, internal communication logs showed increased tension within the Kraken Syndicate's diplomatic corps. Middle-ranking officials began questioning established protocols. Communication became slightly less efficient. Microscopic cracks appeared in their seemingly impenetrable social structure. "We're not destroying," Amara reminded her team. "We're creating space for alternative perspectives." Each team member understood the profound ethical dimension of their work. This wasn't about conquest. It was about creating possibilities for communication, for understanding, for potential cooperation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez from the Technological Research Division would occasionally visit. Her adaptive technologies and Amara's psychological strategies represented two sides of the same approach. Technology and understanding, working in perfect harmony. "They see us as a potential resource to be collected," Elena observed during one strategy session. "We're showing them we're a civilization to be understood." The stars outside the research facility seemed to shimmer with possibility. Humanity was developing a new language of interaction, one that went beyond traditional concepts of conflict and cooperation. Something extraordinary was emerging. Not a weapon, not a strategy of destruction, but a method of communication so complex, so nuanced, that it could potentially transform entire civilizations. The dropship moved like liquid shadow across an alien landscape. Lieutenant Sarah Chen barely breathed as her neural interface synchronized with the ship's adaptive camouflage system. Around her, the 7-person strike team represented humanity's most advanced combat integration. They were more than soldiers. They were living, breathing technological ecosystems. Sergeant Michael Rodriguez adjusted his bio-integrated armor. The material wasn't just protection. It was a living, thinking defense mechanism. Molecular structures could reconfigure in microseconds, transforming from lightweight mobility gear to hardened combat protection. Sensors integrated with the team's collective neural network provided situational awareness that transcended traditional human perception. Their mission was unprecedented. A surgical intervention into a Kraken Syndicate forward research base that had been establishing itself on a resource-rich moon at the edge of a contested star system. Traditional military doctrine would have suggested a massive assault. This team represented something entirely different: precision, adaptability, intelligence. Thermal signatures detected, whispered Corporal Aisha O'Keek, her neural interface parsing environmental data faster than any previous human communication system. 3 primary research clusters, multiple secondary defense nodes. The ship's adaptive coding shifted, becoming indistinguishable from the moon's rocky terrain. Microscopic sensory nodes extended, creating a comprehensive environmental map that went beyond visual or thermal detection. They could feel the electromagnetic vibrations, sense molecular changes, predict potential threat responses before they could even form. Lieutenant Chen's neural link expanded. She wasn't just commanding a team. She was part of a living, breathing strategic network. Each team member's individual capabilities merged into a collective intelligence that could process and respond to threats with impossible speed and complexity. Their entry point was a microscopic weakness in the Kraken Syndicate's defensive perimeter. A molecular gap so small that traditional scanning systems would never detect it. But their adaptive technologies saw possibilities where others saw solid barriers. Breach sequence initiated, Rodriguez reported. The team moved like liquid mercury. Their armor adjusted to each microscopic terrain change. Gravity compensators allowed impossible movements. Neural interfaces predicted and neutralized potential detection algorithms before they could even activate. Inside the research base, everything changed. The Kraken Syndicate's defensive systems were designed around predictable combat models. Massive barriers, concentrated defense points, linear threat assessment. They had never encountered an infiltration team that could literally become part of the environment. Sarah's team didn't just move through the facility. They became the facility. Adaptive nanites integrated with the base's own technological systems. Communication networks were gently subverted. Defense protocols were rewritten from within. It wasn't destruction. It was a systematic, intelligent reconfiguration. Primary research database accessing, Corporal O'Keek reported. Her neural interface was literally dancing through complex encryption systems, transforming barriers into pathways of information. What they discovered was more valuable than any physical objective. Research data that revealed the Kraken Syndicate's true intentions. Technological vulnerabilities. Strategic planning documents that exposed their entire expansion methodology. The mission wasn't about combat. It was about understanding. As they extracted, the base behind them showed no signs of intrusion. Microscopic adaptive systems restored every molecular structure. By the time Kraken Syndicate investigators would arrive, there would be no evidence anything had happened. Mission complete, Lieutenant Chen reported to command. But it was more than a mission report. It was a statement of a new kind of strategic engagement. Humanity had just demonstrated that technology was more than a weapon. It was a language of interaction, of understanding, of potential transformation. The Galactic Strategic Room hummed with silent potential. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood before a holographic display that mapped thousands of star systems, each point a complex network of potential interactions. Behind her, a team of strategists from every conceivable discipline worked in perfect synchronization. Economists sat aside quantum physicists. Cultural anthropologists collaborated with communication specialists. Mathematical predictive models danced across screens that wrapped around the circular room. This isn't about territory, Elena explained to her team. This is about reimagining how civilizations interact. The Kraken Syndicate had spent millennia expanding through a combination of economic pressure, technological intimidation, and strategic manipulation. They viewed the galaxy as a resource to be consumed, civilizations as potential assets to be integrated or eliminated. Humanity was about to demonstrate a completely different approach. Dr. Marcus Chen, head of Interstellar Strategic Analysis, manipulated the holographic display. Entire economic networks appeared as flowing rivers of data. Each civilization became a complex node of potential interaction, not a target for conquest. "Watch this," he said quietly. The display began to show a series of intricate economic and communication interventions. Humanity wasn't attacking the Kraken Syndicate's infrastructure. They were creating alternative pathways of interaction for subjugated civilizations. A research outpost near the Orion Arm became their first major strategic test. The Valyrian species had been under Kraken Syndicate control for generations. Isolated, oppressed, considered nothing more than a resource extraction point. Humans introduced something unprecedented: a comprehensive communication and economic support network. Quantum communication arrays appeared, providing the Valyrians with unrestricted information access. Economic support systems emerged that didn't require direct human intervention. Technology transfer programs created pathways for technological development that respected the Valyrian culture's unique characteristics. The Kraken Syndicate's response was predictable: economic pressure, communication disruption, attempts to isolate the developing relationship. But humanity had prepared for every potential countermove. Adaptive communication networks responded to each Kraken intervention. When communication channels were blocked, new pathways emerged. Quantum entanglement communication systems became impossible to interrupt. Economic support came through channels the Syndicate couldn't trace or control. Other subjugated civilizations began to watch. The Zorn Collective. The Halixian Confederacy. Dozens of species that had existed under the Kraken Syndicate's control for generations suddenly saw a different possibility. This wasn't conquest. This was liberation through sophisticated strategic support. "We're creating a new model of interaction," Elena told her team. "Not based on control, but on potential." Intelligence reports streamed in from across multiple star systems. The Kraken Syndicate's internal communication networks showed increasing stress. Middle-ranking administrators began questioning established expansion protocols. Economic models that had worked for millennia started showing unexpected fractures. Dr. Chen's predictive models were working perfectly. Each intervention was carefully calculated. Each communication pathway precisely designed to create maximum systemic complexity with minimal direct intervention. "They won't understand what's happening," one of the younger strategic analysts observed. Elena smiled. Exactly. The galactic map continued to shift. What looked like random communication and economic interactions to an outside observer was actually a carefully designed strategic network. Humanity was playing a game with so many layers that traditional concepts of conflict became meaningless. This wasn't about defeating an enemy. This was about creating possibilities that didn't previously exist. The stars outside seemed to shimmer with new potential. Something extraordinary was emerging, a completely new way of understanding interstellar civilization. The conference chamber was unlike any diplomatic space in galactic history. Dr. Amara O'Keefe stood at the center of a holographic forum that connected representatives from dozens of civilizations. This wasn't a traditional diplomatic meeting. It was a radical reimagining of interstellar cooperation. The walls shimmered with adaptive communication interfaces. Translation systems went far beyond simple language conversion. They captured cultural nuance, emotional subtext, and contextual understanding that traditional communication methods could never achieve. "Conflict is not a problem to be solved," Amara began, her voice translated into multiple linguistic and sensory formats. "It's an opportunity for mutual understanding." Representatives from the Zorn Collective, the Halixian Confederacy, and dozens of other species listened with a mixture of confusion and cautious hope. Humanity had spent years developing a comprehensive approach to conflict resolution that defied every established galactic interaction model. Their system wasn't about winning. It was about transformation. Dr. Marcus Chen's predictive ethical modeling systems sat at the core of their approach. These weren't simple algorithms. They were complex neural networks that could analyze potential conflict scenarios with unprecedented depth. Every strategic decision passed through multiple ethical filters. What would be the long-term impact on all involved civilizations? How could resolution create opportunities for mutual growth? What cultural contexts needed to be understood? The Kraken Syndicate's traditional expansion model had been ruthlessly linear. Identify a resource, assess potential resistance, neutralize or integrate. Humanity proposed something radically different: A young researcher named Kai Rodriguez demonstrated their approach using a complex holographic simulation. A potential conflict scenario played out not as a linear progression of combat, but as a multidimensional web of potential interactions. Military resources became opportunities for technological exchange. Economic pressures transformed into collaborative development programs. Cultural differences became sources of mutual enrichment. Each potential conflict point became a node of potential cooperation. The gathered representatives watched in stunned silence. This wasn't diplomacy as they understood it. This was a fundamental reimagining of how civilizations could interact. "We're not proposing peace," Amara explained. "We're proposing a dynamic state of mutual understanding." The ethical modeling systems could predict potential conflict scenarios with extraordinary precision. But unlike traditional military predictive models, these systems were designed to create resolution pathways. Every potential point of tension became an opportunity for dialogue, for growth, for mutual understanding. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had been instrumental in developing the technological infrastructure supporting these systems, explained the deeper philosophy. "Traditional conflict resolution assumes opposing sides," she said. "We're proposing a model where no such sides truly exist. Only potential collaborations waiting to be discovered." The Zorn Collective's representative, a crystalline being named Zera 9, asked the question on everyone's mind. "How can you be certain this will work?" Amara's response was calm, measured. "We're not certain. That's precisely the point." Certainty implied a fixed perspective. Humanity was proposing something far more dynamic, a continuous process of mutual discovery, an approach to interaction that saw potential where others saw barriers. The holographic display continued to shimmer with possibilities. Potential conflict scenarios transformed into collaborative opportunities in real time. Military resources became technological exchange programs. Economic tensions became joint development initiatives. This was more than a diplomatic strategy. This was a fundamental reimagining of how intelligent civilizations could interact. The stars outside seemed to hold their breath. Something extraordinary was emerging. A new language of interstellar cooperation. The galactic reconstruction began quietly. It wasn't a moment of dramatic triumph. Instead, it was a gradual, intricate process of systemic reimagination. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from the Central Coordination Hub as decades of strategic preparation began to bear fruit. Quantum communication networks spread like living systems across multiple star systems. These weren't simple communication channels. They were adaptive, intelligent networks that could reshape themselves in response to cultural and technological changes. The Kraken Syndicate's millennia-old expansion model began to crumble not through direct confrontation, but through a comprehensive redesign of interstellar interaction systems. Economic networks transformed first. What had been rigid extraction systems became collaborative development platforms. Resources were no longer seen as objects to be consumed, but as opportunities for mutual growth. Dr. Marcus Chen's predictive modeling systems had mapped out thousands of potential transformation scenarios. Each scenario was a complex web of potential interactions, cultural exchanges, and technological collaborations. "We're not destroying their system," Marcus explained to his team. "We're creating a more dynamic alternative." Technological transfer programs emerged that respected each civilization's unique cultural context. The Valyrian species received adaptive educational technologies that integrated perfectly with their unique cognitive structures. The Zorn Collective gained access to quantum communication systems that amplified their already sophisticated collective intelligence. Kai Rodriguez led a team that developed adaptive cultural exchange platforms. These weren't simple translation systems. They were comprehensive understanding mechanisms that could capture the nuanced complexity of interspecies communication. A research station near the Orion Arm became the first major test of this new approach. Where previous interstellar interactions had been about control, this was about mutual discovery. Civilizations that had been isolated for generations suddenly found themselves part of a dynamic, collaborative network. Communication barriers dissolved. Technological capabilities expanded. Cultural understanding deepened. The transformation wasn't linear. It wasn't predictable. It was a complex, adaptive process that defied traditional understanding of diplomatic and technological exchange. Amara O'Keefe's ethical modeling systems worked in perfect harmony with Chen's predictive technologies. Every potential interaction was analyzed not for potential conflict, but for potential collaboration. "We're creating a living system of interstellar interaction," Amara would often say. Not a fixed structure, but a continuous process of mutual discovery. The Kraken Syndicate's response was fascinating. Their hierarchical communication systems began to show unexpected fractures. Middle-ranking administrators started questioning established expansion protocols. Economic models that had worked for millennia suddenly seemed obsolete. They weren't being attacked. They were being fundamentally reimagined. Adaptive communication networks made traditional concepts of territorial control meaningless. Economic systems became fluid, dynamic platforms of mutual development. Cultural exchange programs created understanding where previous interactions had only known tension. Alina watched the holographic displays that mapped these interactions. What looked like random communication patterns to an outside observer was actually a carefully designed strategic network of unprecedented complexity. This wasn't about defeating an enemy. This was about creating possibilities that didn't previously exist. The stars outside the research station seemed to pulse with new potential. Something extraordinary was emerging. A completely new way of understanding interstellar civilization. Time lost meaning in the vast cosmic expanse. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the observation deck of the Horizon Station, watching the intricate dance of civilizations that humanity had helped bring together. What had begun as a potential moment of extinction had transformed into something far more profound. The station itself was a testament to their journey. Constructed from adaptive technologies that could reconfigure themselves, it hosted representatives from over 70 different species. Each section reflected the unique cultural and technological characteristics of its inhabitants. Quantum communication networks pulsed like living arteries, connecting distant star systems in a web of unprecedented cooperation. "We were never about conquest," Alina murmured to herself, reviewing the historical logs. Dr. Marcus Chen approached, his neural interface gently illuminating with soft blue light. Decades of strategic planning had culminated in this moment. A galactic ecosystem more complex and vibrant than anyone could have imagined. The transformation hadn't been simple. It had been a delicate, intricate process of continuous adaptation, where the Kraken Syndicate had seen civilizations as resources to be extracted. Humanity had seen potential partners in a grand cosmic collaboration. Kai Rodriguez, now leading the Interstellar Cultural Understanding Initiative, joined them. Holographic displays showed the latest collaborative research projects, a joint technological development between the Valyrian species and the Zorn Collective would have been unimaginable decades ago. Now it was just another Tuesday. "Remember when we thought this was impossible?" Kai asked, a smile playing across her lips. The station's adaptive walls shifted, reflecting the emotional resonance of the conversation. This wasn't just a technological marvel. It was a living, breathing testament to the power of understanding. Amara O'Keefe's ethical modeling systems had become the foundation of interstellar diplomatic interactions. What had started as a theoretical approach to conflict resolution had transformed entire civilizations' understanding of cooperation. A communication burst arrived from the frontier research stations. New discoveries, collaborative breakthroughs, technological innovations that defied previous understanding of physics, biology, communication. Elena reflected on their original first contact with the Kraken Syndicate. What could have been a moment of potential destruction had become the catalyst for a complete reimagining of interstellar civilization. They hadn't conquered, they had connected. The adaptive technologies that had begun as defensive mechanisms had transformed into collaborative platforms, communication networks that could predict and resolve potential conflicts before they emerged, economic systems that saw resources as opportunities for mutual growth. "We're still learning," Marcus said, reading Alina's thoughts through their neural link. And that's the point. The stars outside seemed to pulse with possibility. Civilizations that had been isolated for millennia now shared knowledge, technology, culture. The rigid hierarchies that had defined galactic interactions for generations had dissolved, replaced by a dynamic, living network of mutual understanding. Humanity had proven something profound. That true strength wasn't about domination. It was about connection. About seeing potential where others saw barriers. About transforming conflict into collaboration. A young researcher approached, carrying data from the latest collaborative research project. A joint initiative between 5 different species that would have been impossible just decades ago. "We're ready for the next phase," the researcher said. Alina looked out at the stars. The journey was far from over. In many ways, it was just beginning. The universe watched, waiting to see what would emerge next.